Venice declared official war on the Ottoman Empire while its own merchants were trading in Constantinople. The Venetian Senate voted for war and simultaneously voted to allow merchants to keep trading inside Ottoman territories. The Venetian ambassador, called the Bailo, remained at his post in Constantinople throughout the entire war. The Fondaco dei Turchi in Venice remained open for Ottoman merchants throughout every declared period of war. This arrangement was not a wartime anomaly or diplomatic accident, but a deliberate and consistent Venetian policy. Commercial logic consistently overrode political hostility in both Venice and Constantinople across more than 2 centuries. History textbooks portray Venice and the Ottoman Empire as civilizational rivals defined by crusades and naval warfare. The Venetian Senate archives reveal a more complex reality of continuous commercial engagement beneath the declared wars. 4 major wars spanned from 1463 to 1669, yet Venetian-Ottoman trade never fully stopped. Both Venice and the Ottoman Empire made deliberate institutional choices to maintain commercial relationships during armed conflict. Eric Durstler documented the mechanisms allowing trade to continue through his research on Venetians in Constantinople. Kate Fleet documented the Ottoman side of this arrangement in her research on early Islamic and European trade. Venetian Senate deliberation records show debates about trade suspension during each war and consistent decisions not to suspend. The Ottoman capitulations granting Venetian merchants legal protections were renewed multiple times even during active warfare. The survival of commerce through conflict tells a different story about this relationship than battle records alone. The Fondaco dei Turchi on the Grand Canal in Venice stands as physical evidence of this commercial relationship. The Fondaco survived all 4 wars between Venice and the Ottoman Empire and continued operating after each peace. Standard historical curricula frame Venice and Ottoman as religious and military adversaries while omitting the commercial partnership. The Bailo institution was established in the 15th century as Venice formalized permanent diplomatic presence in Constantinople. The Bailo served simultaneously as ambassador, commercial supervisor, legal intermediary, and cultural representative for all Venetians abroad. During declared wars, the Bailo was sometimes confined to his residence, but was never expelled from Constantinople. The Ottomans imprisoned the Bailo at moments of military tension, but maintained the institution as a permanent fixture. Ottoman capitulations were formal royal grants, specifying exactly which rights and protections Venetian merchants would receive there. These capitulations were renegotiated and renewed at the end of each war, re-establishing commercial frameworks within peace agreements. Venetian merchants operating in Constantinople received legal protections, allowing them to be tried under Venetian commercial law. The Fondaco dei Turchi housed Ottoman merchants in Venice, providing warehouse space, living quarters, and a prayer space. Ottoman merchants in Venice were legally required to reside in the Fondaco, which also regulated their commercial activities. Venice had its own Fondaco in Constantinople, and the symmetry of arrangements reflected genuine mutual commercial respect. Eric Durstler spent years in Venetian and Ottoman archives, documenting the daily lives of Venetians in Constantinople. Durstler found that many Venetians in Constantinople developed hybrid identities shaped by sustained immersion in Ottoman culture. The dragomans, official interpreters serving both Venice and the Ottomans, were often figures of mixed cultural background. Venetian dragomans negotiated contracts, translated legal documents, and mediated disputes between Venetian merchants and Ottoman officials daily. The first major Venice-Ottoman War began in 1463, when the Ottoman Empire seized Venetian territories in Greece. During the 1463 war, Venetian merchants documented in Ottoman records continued operating in Constantinople under imperial protection. The Peace of 1479 restored commercial frameworks immediately, demonstrating that both states prioritized trade resumption after conflict. The War of 1499 arose from Ottoman expansion into territories Venice claimed along the Adriatic and Aegean. During the 1499 war, Venetian commercial activity in Ottoman ports continued under informal protective arrangements throughout. The Peace of 1503 again immediately restored capitulations, indicating commercial resumption was the primary diplomatic objective. The War of Cyprus began in 1570 when Ottoman forces invaded Cyprus, Venice's most valuable eastern possession. Cyprus was the center of Venetian sugar production and a crucial staging point for Eastern Mediterranean commercial operations. Despite the Cyprus invasion, Venetian merchants in Constantinople were not ordered to leave by the Venetian Senate. The Venetian Senate debated the Cyprus crisis at length and explicitly declined to order withdrawal of Constantinople merchants. The Battle of Lepanto in 1571, a Christian coalition naval victory, did not halt Venetian-Ottoman commercial relations. Venice made a separate peace with the Ottomans in 1573, ceding Cyprus to restore commercial access. The decision to make peace without allies was explicitly motivated by the need to restore Ottoman commercial access. The Senate records from the War of Cyprus contain explicit cost-benefit calculations weighing military solidarity against commercial restoration. The calculations consistently showed that commercial access to Ottoman markets was worth more than continued military engagement. Kate Fleet analyzed Ottoman commercial records alongside Venetian archives to reconstruct the full scope of the trading relationship. Ottoman records show the same commercial calculation on the eastern side, with trade revenues factored into war decisions. Venice supplied the Ottoman Empire with luxury cloth, glasswork, and metalwork the Ottoman market could not produce. The Ottoman Empire supplied Venice with raw silk, cotton, spices, and grain the Venetian economy required daily. Neither state could afford to permanently sever commercial relations without causing significant damage to its own economic foundations. The commercial logic was more powerful than the religious framing both sides used to justify conflicts publicly. Durstler concluded Venetians in Constantinople were participants in a shared commercial culture rather than Western civilization ambassadors. Some long-term Venetian residents in Constantinople converted to Islam, adopted Ottoman dress, and raised families inside Ottoman society. Dragoman families served Venetian commercial interests for multiple generations, creating hereditary roles embedded deeply in both cultures. The depth of institutional integration between Venice and Constantinople went far beyond anything the textbook war narrative acknowledges. Kate Fleet's research demonstrated that Ottoman commercial law actively accommodated Venetian merchant practices within Ottoman legal frameworks. Ottoman Qadis, Islamic legal judges, regularly adjudicated disputes involving Venetian merchants using frameworks honoring the capitulations. The primary sources for this history are the Venetian Senate records, Bailo dispatches, and Ottoman imperial chancery documents. The Bailo dispatches sent from Constantinople to Venice contain detailed commercial intelligence about Ottoman market conditions and volumes. Venice treated the Bailo's commercial reports as state intelligence, circulating them to Senate committees responsible for trade policy. Ottoman imperial registers called defters recorded commercial activities and tax payments of Venetian merchants in the empire. The defters provide independent Ottoman confirmation of commercial relationships documented in the Venetian Senate archives simultaneously. When Venetian and Ottoman records are read together, they reveal mutual commercial dependence that wars could not destroy. During the War of Candia from 1645 to 1669, the longest conflict, trade continued through intermediaries. When direct Venetian trade was disrupted during Candia, merchants used Dutch and English intermediaries to maintain commercial flows. The Venice-Ottoman commercial system proved resilient enough to survive even their most destructive and prolonged wars. European history textbooks have consistently framed the Venice-Ottoman relationship as an episode in the broader clash of civilizations. The Crusades framework applied to Venice-Ottoman relations emphasizes religious conflict and military confrontation while omitting commercial cooperation. The commercial partnership was inconvenient for nationalist histories needing Venice to represent Christian Europe against Ottoman East. Senate records showing deliberate decisions to prioritize trade over military solidarity contradict the heroic narrative of civilizational resistance. The Battle of Lepanto was celebrated as a Christian victory, while Venice's commercial interests went entirely unmentioned. Only recently have scholars like Durstler and Fleet made commercial dimensions of this relationship visible to broader audiences. Academic historians now widely acknowledge the Venice-Ottoman commercial partnership, but popular understanding remains dominated by the war narrative. What was suppressed was not a minor commercial footnote, but the primary mechanism funding both states' wars. Venice used Ottoman trade revenues to fund fleets it deployed against Ottoman forces in the Adriatic. The Ottoman Empire used revenues from Venetian trade to fund campaigns against Venetian-held territories in the eastern Mediterranean. The Fondaco dei Turchi stands on the Grand Canal today, operated now as Venice's Natural History Museum. The building served as the Ottoman merchant residence in Venice for centuries before the empire itself ended. Its survival as a Venetian landmark reflects commercial entanglement that 4 wars between them could not dissolve. No city preserves an adversarial civilization's residence as a civic landmark unless that adversary was also a partner. The Bailo archives in Venice's State Archive contain thousands of documents attesting to this arrangement's durability. The Ottoman capitulations granted to Venice survived multiple wars and were re-established within every subsequent peace treaty. The commercial logic keeping Venice and the Ottoman Empire, trading through 4 wars, remained operative for 2 centuries. History chose to remember Lepanto and Negroponte and the fall of Cyprus as the defining narrative here. The Senate records and Bailo dispatches show merchants calculating commodity prices in Constantinople throughout those same battles simultaneously. The trade was not the background to the Venice-Ottoman relationship. The trade was the relationship itself. The wars were interruptions in a commercial relationship both sides valued more than the territorial disputes driving them. The building on the Grand Canal, where Ottoman merchants lived through 4 declared wars, still stands in Venice.